has been requested from a lot of people. There is a little bit of controversy behind, like, I know when I grew up, like we'd go to the doctor and the doctor would be like, don't let him weight training. Because I started weight training at about 12, 13 years old. And then other doctors would be like, yeah, go for it. And they'd say, oh, it impedes growth. It's good for growth. And there was just a lot of confusion. So my parents really didn't know like what to do. Should we let this kid join a gym, or not? And what are the real effects on the body? And God bless the medical community. We love our doctors out there, but a lot of times they're the worst resource, as we know, or not even a resource for strength training science, exercise science, nutritional sciences. So I wanted to bring in an expert on this. And before I really got to know this guy, I just knew he was like a cool dude, man. Like we'd get together, we would talk a lot of West Side Barbell. So I knew there was something there. And then we'd talk like deeper West Side Barbell. As you guys know, they do our strength programming for our workout app, best strength organization, arguably in the world. So we would talk a lot about their techniques. He would introduce some different types of techniques into the conversation. And then as I got to know him, I realized, okay, cool. This guy is like a strength training expert. He's got a 16 and 18-year-old that he's been training, as well as a lot of other youth, BS in exercise science. And he has the one certification that got away. You guys know, like in my journey, I went and pursued all these certifications. You can see some of them right behind me. And the CSCS, Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist, that's by the NSCA. That was the one I never did get. I read the manual cover to cover, but I never was able to obtain. I never did what it took to obtain that certification. So a lot of you guys know this. If you know NSCA, you know the CSCS is like the gold standard for strength training certifications. It's just the top dog. So our guest speaker tonight has obtained that. He's a co-founder of Diablo Barbell Club. Also, I didn't know this either. I knew he's a strong dude, but I didn't know he had an 826-pound squat and a 567-pound bench press, dude. That is absolutely ridiculous numbers. Of course, his deadlift not too bad either at of course 705. So yeah, dude, mad respect. So today we're hearing from Garrett Harper, strength training expert. He's going to kind of take us through presentation of youth strength training specifically, but we're going to leave this up to Q&A and we can talk all things strength. So if you have questions that come up, you can type them in the comments. If you're on the live stream, type them in the live stream. We'll get to those at the end. And of course, we'll also offer questions live if you just want to unmute yourself at the end. So Garrett, man, thanks. I know it's really early in the morning for you where you're at, so I appreciate you doing this for us.
Absolutely, man. Hey, thank you for the wonderful intro. It'll actually save us some time because I don't have to go through my bio slide anymore. So this is great, man. Everybody knows what's going on. Hey, good morning to everyone out there. I'm really excited to be able to take advantage of this opportunity through my friendship and relationship with Jesse and, of course, his awesome wife, Erica. And really, really excited to come on here and talk to you guys about this. I was actually having trouble falling asleep last night because I was just kind of thinking through, wow, this is going to be really cool. All the things I get to go through and talk about and the stuff I've been passionate about for most of my life. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump into this. I'm big on alliteration. So in my title, we've got youth strength training, myths, motivation, and methodology. We're going to cover all this stuff. Jesse opened it with some of the common myths that are related to strength training in kids, how to properly motivate and encourage kids. We'll go through some of the stuff that I use for that. And then the actual methodology that I do when I'm training the kids. And I've been doing this for about 23 years now, working with primarily high school athletes, but I do go as low as middle school. I generally won't accept anybody prior to 7th grade for a variety of reasons that we'll get into. But let's go ahead and just get this jump started here. We will just kind of go right through the bio. I think the only thing that Jesse didn't cover was that I began lifting at the age of 14. I got invited from a neighbor to go to the high school and begin lifting for football. And that was literally it for me. After the first time I was sold, I squatted a whopping 135 and I benched 95 pounds. So that was, hey, good old 14-year-old me. But things progressed pretty quickly from there. And it kind of really just lit this fire in me I went on to study exercise physiology at Gonzaga University. I did get my CSCS certification, worked as a personal trainer for a while, worked as a head strength and conditioning coach at a private training facility up in Sacramento, California, and then eventually just opened my own gym, Diablo Barbell in Concord, California. I'm no longer affiliated with it as I moved to Phoenix, but it's still going strong. We founded it back in 2003. So it's been open for 20 years now, which is a pretty significant accomplishment for a powerlifting gym. So let's go ahead and jump into some fun stuff here. Let's talk about the myths associated with strength training and youth. And these myths are things that's cropped up 50, 60, 70 years ago when the idea of using weights to enhance strength was kind of becoming a mainstream idea. And really a lot of that is thanks to guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Lou Ferrigno, kind of the original group of, the Iron Brotherhood that started this all. And, kids saw Arnold, they wanted to look like Arnold. And that's really what drove the entire fitness industry. It's why you have gyms on every single corner of every single city in the country, it feels like. And so as this became more popular, parents, they don't really know a lot about this at the time. They've never done any weight training themselves because it's brand new. So they're asking doctors and pediatricians, is it okay if my kids do this? Well, the doctors start to notice, I don't know, the growth plates haven't closed yet. Maybe if we put too much stress on the bones, it could cause those growth plates to close early. You're going to have a bunch of small people. No, that's not how this works, okay? Lifting weights at a young age is not going to stunt your child's growth. It doesn't. It's been proven over and over and over again, but we have this old wives' tale that, hey, no, instead of being 6'8", they're only going to be 5'2". It's completely ridiculous. It has been proven over and over that is not the case. It's nothing you have to worry about. So if you have a doctor that tells you this, you can chuckle. And actually, yeah, Michelle, exactly. Bones thrive on stress. Bone density is enhanced. Connective tissue is enhanced through weight training. All of that stuff. So there is no harm to the overall growth of your child from participating in a properly structured weight training program. The second one that I hear all the time is, they're going to get injured, right? It's going to cause them to get hurt. They're going to break bones. They're going to tear ligaments and tendons. Again, they're not. It's not like we're taking a 12-year-old and we're immediately having a max out on the squat, right? That's not how this works. There is a structure to this stuff. Kids are already putting tremendous stresses on their bodies. You ever go to a playground, you see what kids do? They're jumping off of slides. They're doing all types of high impact, crazy stuff. It doesn't affect them at all. I mean, they are just like rubber bands. Kids are incredibly durable. And again, when the program is structured properly and you have a knowledgeable individual, your kids are not going to get hurt. It's actually going to decrease their chance of injury when they have proper technique and training, both in the gym and most importantly for a lot of kids, out on their athletic field, right? It's going to greatly lower the incidence for injury for kids that engage in proper strength training. And then finally, the last one, and this is one that cracks me up. I usually get this from like baseball players or volleyball players. Sports where mass isn't as important as it is in, say, football or lacrosse or some of these other sports. Oh, I'm going to get too big. Nobody in the history of the world really ever got too big. It is so hard to get quote unquote too big, right? And I have not yet to meet a kid or yet to work with a student athlete that did not benefit from putting on 15 to 20 pounds of muscle. My old next door neighbor in California is a catcher on the varsity baseball team. The kid, when he started with me, was 6 feet, 125 pounds. I mean, he was a skeleton, right? Are you telling me that 20 to 30 pounds of muscle would hurt this kid's performance at all? No, not at all, right? And he did. The kid put on 40 pounds, right? This had a tremendous impact. Now he's up to a whopping 165, right? But man, not only does he look great, his performance on the baseball field went through the roof, right? His power has gone up. His ability to throw people out behind home plate has gone up. He's generating more force. He's a more durable player. So anytime I have people tell me, hey, I don't want to get too big, I just kind of laugh. So these are some of the most common things that I hear. They are all false. You don't need to worry about them. A fully structured weight training and strength conditioning program for youth is absolutely 100% safe. All right, let's get into some of the methodology that I use when working with youth athletes. And the first thing, that I said this a little bit earlier, I don't work with kids that are not in middle school. And even middle school kids are difficult to work with simply because the amount of physical and mental maturity varies so much in middle school, even in high school, but it's a little bit less so in high school. But man, keeping the attention span of middle school kids, it's difficult. I admire the teachers that do it. So yes, I will work with them, but they've got to make a pretty rigid level of commitment and discipline. You know, I'm not going to be working with kids that are just bouncing off the walls that really have no interest in being there. They're only there because their kid, you know, their parents made them, and I heard it was a fun idea. I want people that are dedicated to being in there. And you're certainly not going to find that in elementary school. It's difficult to find it in middle school, but if you are working with younger kids, just keep that in mind. You're going to have to adjust some of the ways that you structure your programs. But regardless of the age that they start with, right? And by the way, I started my boys training when they were 12 years old, just so everybody knows. These are my own kids personally. We always start off with body weight training, okay? Body weight training is a lot more than just push-ups and pull-ups, right? You can do body weight squats. You can do body weight lunges. There are a variety of different movements that you can do simply using body weight that kids will adapt to very, very quickly. And it's a great way to just build a foundational level of strength, okay? I'm not gonna throw a barbell on their back on the first day. I'm not gonna have them lay down and try to bench or, God forbid, use dumbbells on the first day. You ever wanna watch something funny? Potentially really dangerous, give a kid who's never touched a weight before a pair of dumbbells and have them lay down and try to press them. It is a disaster, right? They are all over the place. The coordination isn't there. So we always begin with body weight training just to get a sense of, okay, this is how my body works when I'm in the gym. These are the muscle groups we're trying to use, just to get a general feeling, that proprioception of what's going on with the weight when their body is moving through space, okay? From there, we progress on to some modified strongman training, believe it or not. And I'm not talking about, hey, we're not doing a max deadlift, we're not lifting the log overhead for max reps, but it's the idea of doing some type of externally loaded movement activity. So weighted carries of all types, right? Carrying a medicine ball for distance, dragging a sled up and back multiple ways, using a very lightly loaded barbell or maybe a light set of dumbbells in their hands, doing farmer's walk type activities. We do a lot of this stuff because it builds on the body weight activity. It continues to enhance that foundation. This is also a great way to get kids into a competitive mindset. I usually like to do group training. So we'll have groups of kids team up, whether it's pairs of 2 or entire teams of 5 or 6. And we create all kinds of things, obstacle courses, races, you know, events for distance, events for time. It gets them highly, highly motivated, especially the younger kids. It keeps them engaged and it keeps them wanting to have fun with their training. Once I've seen enough progression here with the modified strongman or the types of weighted carries, then we'll actually move into a version of conjugate periodization, which is, you know, the West Side Barbell training system. In my experience, in my reading, and in my own personal training with myself, this is the most effective strength training system that's ever been developed, because it does not rely on genetics to achieve potential. And what I mean by that is this system can be individually adapted. The focus is to develop your weaknesses into strengths, okay? Whatever those weaknesses are, you find those, you hammer those weaknesses, you develop them into strengths. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. If your low back is the weak link, it doesn't matter how much work you do for your hamstrings, your quads, and your glutes, you're going to continually fail to lift at the same weight if you don't specifically address your lower back. So what we do is we take I will say a more basic version of the West Side program, and I start to apply that for these kids. They do 4 days of training per week, right? They have a maximum effort day. It doesn't mean they're maxing out with max weights day one that they start this program, but it allows me to start teaching them the barbell movements. We also do the dynamic effort day with the speed work, but again, it's not true speed work. They don't know how to be explosive yet, but it gets repetitions in, and it gets more and more first reps because they're doing multiple sets. So instead of doing 3 sets of 12, right, for a squat, they do 12 sets of 3 because they're getting the experience of unracking the weight and doing that first rep over and over and over and over again. It enhances technique. It really gives me a chance to really dial these kids in and get them to a point where I'm comfortable saying, okay, we can now start doing some higher levels of external loading, okay? And so we'll do this, and this entire process, will typically take anywhere from 4 to 6 months before we get them into this actual loaded barbell phase of training. And if you've done it properly, the kids are going to have good form, good technique, and a pretty good understanding of what we're trying to accomplish in the gym. All right, let's go a little bit deeper into the methodology part. And the first part, and honestly, probably the most important part with youth, is having an environment of authority and trust, okay? This isn't like a college weight room, right, where you're dealing with a bunch of 18 to 20-year-olds. Certainly not like a professional weight room where kind of everybody's doing their own thing and they've got their own private coaches. This is an area where I need to be in control, but the kids also need to trust and look up to me, okay? So the first thing that I focus on is motivation and not intimidation, okay? It's gonna do no good if I go in there the first day and try to act like General Patton, the drill sergeant, and just beat the crap out of them. Nobody's gonna come back, right? They're not gonna have an enjoyable first experience, except for maybe that one outlier kid that's like, hey, I'm here for anything, right? Like, I'll do anything you say. That's very rare. You've gotta help motivate these kids. And I do that like I said earlier, through all types of competitions and games when they first start, right? The message is clear. We're here to work hard, right? All the stuff I have in my gym, the banners on the wall, hey, they indicate that this is a serious place to be. But if you respect that, you're also going to have a very enjoyable time while you're here. Not enjoyable in that, hey, we're laughing on the ground. Enjoyable in that, hey, this guy who's coaching me has good intentions for me. I'm surrounded by kids with similar goals, and we're all in this together as a team, right? The music's going to be amped up. We're going to be going full bore on these contests. We're going to have a great time. It provides motivation, and it removes a little bit of the intimidating nature of being in a strength training facility. As I talked about, incorporating team and individual competitions, I can't stress this enough for the younger kids, especially junior high level. They thrive off of this stuff. It focuses all that, ADHD, nervous energy into one specific task, especially the team stuff, because it also gets them to work as a team. It teaches them the importance of teamwork. Strength training, yes, it's an individual activity, but it requires a team to be successful. It requires spotters. It requires people to help you understand what you're doing correctly or incorrectly with technique. Teams motivate, teams encourage each other. You build a strong set of kids in the gym, they're going to be a strong set of kids out in the field together. So really, really important stuff for the younger crowd. Another big thing is to remind the kids, and this is really a little bit more important for high schoolers, this is a marathon and not a sprint. And what I mean by that is strength training takes years and years and years to develop the level of strength you want when you first start. There is no magic pill. There is no magic, program. There is no secret book you can read that's going to make this happen in 6 months. This is a multi-year, and oftentimes, when you're really into it, lifelong process for people, okay? So I set that expectation up front. Yes, you are going to see some gains in strength and size. Yes, they're going to be significant, but it's not going to happen in a week. And it's not going to happen in a month, right? It's going to take at a minimum 6 to 12 months before you start noticing something. And if you start to get that, boy, then it's really going to start to explode. And this also, a lot of this depends too on, hey, whatever level of physical and mental development kids are at. I've had 7th graders that look like they're sophomores in high school. I've had sophomores in high school that look like they're 7th graders, right? The level of hormones flowing through a teenage kid will greatly affect a lot of this stuff. And it's important to level set that with the kids. You don't have to get into, talking about puberty and testosterone and natural growth hormone and things like that. But it's important that they understand that, listen, not everybody is at the same level here. We're interested in seeing progress for you as an individual from where you started to where you are now. Don't get caught up comparing yourself to all your other friends. Don't get caught up comparing yourself to all the crap that's on Instagram and Snapchat and WhatsApp and God knows whatever else is out there. Focus on you. If you focus on bettering yourself, you're going to have a lot more fun and you're going to have a lot more success when you're doing this. And then finally, practice what you preach. I started lifting at 14. Outside of a couple of years where my kids were young and I wanted to make sure I was 1000% devoted to them, I've been lifting the entire time. I oftentimes lift with the kids that I'm training once they've become more experienced, or I will make sure that I'm finishing up a workout as they're coming in, or I'm starting a workout as they're going out, so that they can see I am doing what they are doing. Yes, I'm doing it at a different level. You know, I've been doing it for 30 years, so things may look a little bit different, but the foundational basic elements are still there. It's really, really important for the kids to see that. Plus, it's also a lot of fun. I'm nowhere near as strong as I used to be, not even close, but I can still put up a decent amount of weight, and it inspires them when they see that, right? There's things like, oh man, look what my coach can do, right? It gets them really, really excited, and they feel like, hey, I'm going to be able to do that soon someday as well. Okay. Kind of got through some of the part one there. The second part here is really going in and laying the foundation. I've got a picture of the Space Needle here in Seattle. I lived in Seattle for a couple of years after I graduated Gonzaga. And the foundation of this thing is far more amazing than the actual structure you see above the ground. At the time that they built this, it was the longest continuous concrete pour in the history of the world. They went over 24 hours. They poured over 4,500 tons of concrete in the base of the Space Needle. It's as deep as it is tall, and the base weighs every bit as much as the actual physical structure that you see above the ground. It's a phenomenal piece of architecture and engineering. But I remember when reading about that, just thinking about, man, the importance of foundations, right? The foundation things that we do as we're working through life. And it doesn't matter what we're doing, right? It's just anything requires a strong foundation. So we've talked about a lot of this already, focusing heavily on body weight exercises, incorporating the modified type of strongman training, very lightly loaded barbells, medicine balls, which are fantastic. Kids love throwing things, by the way. You hand them a 10-pound medicine ball, dude, how high can you throw it? How far can you throw it? How hard can you slam it into the ground? How quickly can you throw it to your teammate? Can you throw it left? Can you throw it right? You can do entire weeks of workouts with medicine balls. They're absolutely fantastic. We talked about building this foundation, progressing into weighted carries, sled drags, slowly adding resistance as we go on. And then after 4 to 6 months, incorporating heavier loads. At that point, like I said, that's when we get into that West Side style training. And this is when you can really start to see progress with kids. This is when you get a really structured program in place. You're starting to use percent-based training. They're really starting to understand how their bodies work in the gym, which is a little bit different than how they work on the athletic field. And this is the point where things start to click. I will say that the more gifted a kid is as a natural athlete, the easier it will be when you get to this phase. The kids that are athletes, I will show them generally one time, hey, here's how you box squat, right? Or, hey, you need to pull your shoulder blades together and down when you're benching and drive with your legs. They literally get it the first time. And they have it's just genetic, right? They have a higher athletic ability. They have higher proprioception. They're much more aware of what their bodies are doing within space. They have greater intermuscular coordination. They're just able to do things a lot faster. So keep that in mind when you're training with youth. It's not that the other kids don't have a chance. They all have a chance. They're all here to be better. It's just that you will notice that the higher level a kid is as an athlete, the easier he is to train because things just click. And you need to be aware of that when you're doing group training specifically, because oftentimes I will separate out different levels. Also, the natural athletes do tend to be stronger as well. So we'll separate them out and split them off into different groups at times, not to show that, hey, one is better than the other, but in order to keep progress moving properly, I need to spend more time with technique on certain kids than I do with others. And it's just something to keep in mind if you're working with this level of youth athlete. Okay, and then the third thing I wanted to get into here is recovery. I can't tell you how many questions I get from parents, from other athletes. Hey, what do I need to take? What do I need to do? What's the secret sauce that's out there? There is no secret sauce, right? It's hard work, it's food, and it's sleep. What we do in the gym is a stimulus, okay? When you're in the gym, you are not actually growing any muscle whatsoever, okay? When you're in the gym, you're in the process of providing the stimulation to your body that says, hey, I'm now undertaking a new activity. I need to have an adaptation to this stimulus. in order to survive and thrive. So the gym is the stimulus. What we do outside of the gym is actually what gets you to grow. Kids have no concept of this, okay? They'll work out 4 times a day if you let them. Well, I went to the gym before school, and then I do weights at PE, and then I came here and I trained with you, and then I went with my dad to the gym at night. Oh, dear God. No, right? 1 training session a day is plenty. Some kids can do 2 if it's structured properly and it's not all weight training. But the most important part is the recovery. I emphasize diet to all of my kids like you can't believe. Everybody always wants to get big and strong. They want to do all this and all that. Okay, well, what did you eat? Well, I don't have breakfast. I usually have, a soda at lunch. And then when I get home from school, I have a bowl of cereal. And then at dinner, I have whatever, my mom or dad makes, whatever's for dinner. And then I have more cereal before I go to bed. Okay, great. So you've had about 30 grams of protein, 200 grams of garbage carbs, and a bunch of processed sugar and some fat. You're not going to get anywhere doing that. So I break down the importance of diet for these kids. We don't even talk supplementation. We don't talk protein. We don't talk creatine. And by the way, the only 2 supplements I ever recommend to my kids are a good high quality protein and creatine. That's it. They don't need anything else. All the other stuff out there for the most part is absolute garbage. I get them focused on 4 whole food meals a day. Okay. If they can get that in consistently, they're going to see a lot of progress. Once we get to the point where that's dialed in, there's no question, you're getting your 4 whole food meals in a day. Now we can start saying, okay, we may need to up your protein a little bit, right? Well, this is dependent on lean body mass and some other things. At that point, we'll consider some type of a high quality protein, usually a powder. I love to use truenutrition.com. You can mix up your own protein powders, whatever you want. They've got really high quality ingredients. I'll have them do that and maybe add in a little bit of creatine. Other than that, there's nothing else. There is no secret. There is no mass nitro, that's going to get them going. That's going to put on 20 pounds in a month. All that stuff is fake. So I emphasize heavily the importance of diet for long-term success. Second is sleep. Sleep, and more sleep. This is where the true magic happens. This is where your body is putting those nutrients to work. This is where there's timed hormone releases at night that assist with recovery. Sleep is key, and kids have got to get on some type of a standard program. I know they're kids, and on the weekends they're probably going to be up late, but at least during the week, get in bed by 10, get up at 6 or 7, whatever you got to do for school. Get those 9 hours of sleep as a teenager. It's going to have such a strong and prolonged effect, not only on what you're doing in your youth, but throughout the rest of your life. You can establish good sleep habits. Sleep is king. Consistency is also key, right? You're not going to be able to come in and do 1 workout a week and see progress. You're not going to be able to come for 1 month at a time, take 2 months off and come back a month later and expect to see anything. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You have got to be consistent and intentional with your training. The training needs to be structured. It can't just be, whatever I pull out of my head, that's what you're going to do today. No, this is a long-term, multi-year approach to training. This is scientifically based and researched. If you are consistent, you will see success, but you must absolutely be consistent. One of my favorite guys to listen and read from is Stan Efferding. He's a retired pro bodybuilder. He's a pro powerlifter. Dude's a genius. Has some great knowledge around training and recovery, and just the whole compliance is the science theme. Man, and Jesse, you're the same way with this. I love talking with Jesse because his nutritional knowledge, in addition to his training knowledge, is through the roof. I learned so much from him talking about the nutritional aspects of training and how to properly apply it. And it really is true. These are the foundational elements you need to properly recover and grow. And then the last thing that I want to touch on is genetics. Talked about this a little bit earlier with athletes. How the natural athletes are easier to train. They tend to adapt to things, understand technique a little bit easier. I've got a picture on the right of one of the most incredible human beings I think that's ever been put on the face of the earth. That's Hafthor Bjornsson from Iceland. The man is 6'9", 445 pounds when he competes, and he has abs at 440 pounds of body weight. Okay, there are just certain genetic outliers in the world. We all tend to focus on these guys, which is great. Believe me, I could watch Hafthor lift all day. He's just an absolute specimen. It's also the guy that played the Mountain in Game of Thrones. If anybody's a Game of Thrones fan, same individual. This is him finishing his deadlift of 1,103 pounds. It's you can't even wrap your head around that. It's so mind-boggling. Use this for motivation because it's so awesome. But also understand that Hafthor is an outlier, right? Most people are not 6'9", 445 pounds, deadlifting 1,100 pounds. In fact, he's the only one. So I tell my kids, yes, be motivated by this, but also understand that, hey, maybe you only deadlift 315 pounds. It doesn't make you a weak individual, right? Again, we're more concerned with you, the individual, and the progress that you are making, right? Maybe when you started, you couldn't deadlift 135, but 2 years later, you're deadlifting 315. That's a massive, massive improvement. We're trying to enhance their unique individual genetic potential. We're not concerned about what Hafthor can do or anybody else on Instagram claims they can do, or whatever Photoshop picture you've seen of a bodybuilder with veins coming through his forearms, right? Everything online is fake. And it's really important to get kids to understand the difference between the real world and hard work and commitment versus all the fitness influencers that they're seeing online and constantly trying to compare themselves to. We don't need any more of that, right? That's what drives the depression epidemic, the anxiety epidemic, this comparison to these false images that they're seeing online. That's what it's not about that. In my gym, and my boys, they're a little bit embarrassed by this when they bring friends over to train. I do not allow phones in my gym. There's no texting, there's no Snapchatting or WhatsApping in my gym. The only time I let them bring out a phone is if they want to record a video of a lift that they're trying to do so that they can show their coach, or for football players, there's a lot of recruiting that's done on Twitter where they'll need to take a video and they upload it on Twitter and they can, get the colleges they're interested in attending to see that. That's the only time I allow a phone in my gym for any reason. I want them focused on what they're doing there. I want them to have intent. I want them building camaraderie and bonding together while they're training. Doing all that results in the whole being greater than the sum of the parts, right? All the kids are contributing to the intensity and the atmosphere and the progress that they're all achieving. My strongest kid is right there rooting for my kid that is, just at the beginning of his strength training journey. The kid at the beginning of the strength training journey is helping the strong kid get ready for a lift. It all works together in synergy, and it's an awesome thing to see when it's done properly.